Hi, I'm Whitney Bradley, and I'm with Retreats Resources. And I am Vice President, Director of Marketing, and I've also been a corporate event planner for way too long, like the mid 90s. In that period of time, I think I've planned about 1,500 events, which is crazy to think about. But I wanted to be here today to answer the question of 5 things you need to know to successfully run a live virtual event. As we all know, virtual is pretty much here to stay. And it's easy to lose the excitement of a live event in the translation to virtual. We're all sort of videoed out, we're zoomed out, we sit in front of our screens like this for way too many hours a day. So what things can you do to make those virtual events exciting, engaging, profitable, successful, et cetera, et cetera? Here's my list, starting with number 1. Your virtual event should be a reflection of your company, just like your live event should be. I've seen a couple of examples where a company has a certain feel, collaterals, their marketing, messaging, their website, their live events, the way they interact with customers, whatever that all is, that bundle is. And they were sort of a very small town feel, it's very high touch. It's high touch or high tech. And they were very high touch. And then I attended one of their online conferences, and it had these, dancers and these singers and this stuff flying in. I mean, it looked like like Studio 54. It was this crazy intro and all these songs and then they had this host that had nothing to do with the company whatsoever. It's like some host they just hired, and I thought, this doesn't feel like them. I mean, initially, yeah, it might have been impressive, but it didn't have their same company feel or that high touch type of representation. So immediately it felt inauthentic. And I think a trap is to get caught up in the technology and all the bells and whistles, which are great, but you have to keep in mind that you still are representing your company or your client, and it has to ring true. It has to resonate with that audience because they expect it. Number 2 is prep your speakers or your presenters. In a live event, you'd never allow someone onto your stage to talk to your audience without having seen their presentation or know that they're comfortable behind the mic or, see their PowerPoint slides or whatever that all is. And the same rings true for virtual. If you have someone who's a keynote speaker, or you're going to call in, or you're going to Zoom in, or whatever you're going to do, make sure that you take the time to go through the proper prep. Train them, make sure they know what software they need to have. Do they need to have a certain background? Do you need to do a full-on tech rehearsal the day before? Do you have other elements that they need to be aware of, like polling features or other software kind of running in the background? All of those things. I come from a theater background, so it's a show. It's the complete show. So think about it in terms of that. And if you wouldn't allow it in a live event, then don't allow it in a virtual event. Number 3. Connect with your audience, make them feel like they're engaged, welcome them, say their names. If you're doing a webinar and you may not be able to see the audience, at least give them something so that they know that you're a live person. You're on the other side of that camera, like I am right now, like, hi, here it's Whitney, I'm doing my thing. Acknowledge that it's a real connection. I woke up this morning, I had a cup of coffee, man, the weather is great. I'm in here in California. Hope you guys are doing well wherever you are. Say something to them to make them feel a part of what's going on. That they're not just sitting there behind their screen on the other side of the country, disengaged. Number 4, it might seem a little hard to do in the virtual world, but it can be handled, and you always have to have a plan B. I was on a conference call. My business partner and I went through about 20 different online platforms, researched them, did the demos, went through, applied as an attendee, did all that stuff. And I had narrowed it down to 2. And I was, the morning of their own conference, my business partner and I were logged in. We were ready to see, okay, this is going to be how it feels to be an attendee. Let's watch this, And actually, I was slanting toward them. I was going in that direction. They started their conference, and it was going like gangbusters for about 40 minutes or so. And she and I are kind of texting, hey, this is cool. Oh, I like the way that they did that. Hey, look at that feature. We're watching, we're interacting. And all of a sudden, it just froze up completely. Like I'm texting her going, I think my Wi-Fi just dropped out. This thing. And she was like, no, mine did too. It's totally frozen. And what had happened was wherever they were headquartered, they were having really bad weather. And their entire conference shut down. And the conference was about, the topic was how to host a great virtual conference. And I thought, wow, the irony that, they're gone. It was like, so when you are looking at an online platform to host your events, one, ask this question. How do I know? Because I was there. Where are your servers located? And where are your switch boxes located? So in the production world, and they may not call it a switch box, but their servers and where their main crux of their software is in one place, but make sure that they have a backup for power outages, weather, just bad Wi-Fi, all those technological things that could happen. So you want to make sure they have a good backup. And then secondly, as far as what you can control, make sure that you have copies of things. If someone has a presentation and they're supposed to share their slides, make sure you have a copy of that presentation as well. Because if something goes wonky on their end, at least you could share your screen and get through it and they could continue. Also, make sure that you know the entire agenda. Make sure that they know what's going to happen when, because people get stuck in traffic. One lady that was supposed to be one of our speakers one time called us like that morning and said, my son broke his leg this morning. We're on the way to the hospital. And we're like, so if that happens, who's going to, toe the line? Who's going to get plugged into that slot? Be prepared, just like you would a live event. It's actually a lot easier for a virtual event, to tell you the truth. So keep that as a grain of hope. The 5th thing I would say, and I think probably the most important, is to be authentic and to be flexible. We as event planners tend to be tied to the clock and tied to an agenda and what's supposed to happen when. And some of the most poignant, perfectly imperfect moments can happen when you let things unfold the way that they do. the way that they're supposed to. And you might be sitting there going, oh my gosh, she's talking too much. Oh my gosh, she's running over time. And you're kind of sitting there like, okay, come on. Let me give an example of what happened one time early on, back in the spring after COVID came out and everyone was doing virtual events and we were hosting weekly ones. We had this open forum where people could just tell us their stories. And we were over time. We were running over our hour, set limit. And we had just about, said goodbye to everyone. And this one woman who had not said anything the entire time asked if she could speak. And we said, of course. And she said, I want to thank you for hosting this today. I haven't contributed much, but it's the first time I've laughed in about a week. I lost my mother yesterday to COVID. And, all of the motion, you could see everybody in the call just freeze, just stop what they were doing. Before that, they had been moving around and kind of futzing, and we were about to get off the call, so they were already doing other things. And everyone's focus turned back to their screen. And they got still, and they closed their eyes, and some, covered their mouths and slumped in their chairs or bowed their heads. And in that moment, there was a connection with those people that was raw and real and beautiful. And if we had stopped the call on time, when we were supposed to, we never would have had that moment together. So don't be afraid to break out of the mold, to be vulnerable and real with your attendees. There is nothing written anywhere that says that a business event can't be a really poignant experience for people. It happens very often in what we're doing. And I hope that you have the chance to experience that for yourself. Those are my 5 things. I'm sure that other planners have different ideas, but those are the ones that have really served me and served my business in the last year or so. And I sure do hope that they help you. Thanks for being with me today.